live music, liberty outreach, constructive civil disobedience. It's all coming up at the Keene Freedom Festival. Don't miss it. Be in Keene, New Hampshire, October 26th. KeeneFreedomFest.com. In late 2007, jailed New Hampshire tax protester Elaine Brown sent me a note. She asked me to report on Ed's claims of mistreatment in prison. Ed's her husband, who's also jailed for being a tax protester. I was a little skeptical of the mistreatment claims because Ed also claims that there's a secret society of Jesuits that run the world. I might not approve of the gigantic and violent federal government that jailed Ed and Elaine, but that doesn't mean I'm going to report every bad thing Ed says about the government. However, now confirmation seems to be coming from an unexpected source. Blogger, book writer J.J. MacNab from Maryland has been attending various Brown-related trials in New Hampshire. She's generally sympathetic to the federal viewpoint. She describes herself as, quote, increasingly involved in assisting law enforcement and regulators, unquote. So, she's no friend of the Brown cause. But in an article published September 25, 2008, she says the Browns are in, quote, really horrible and dangerous prisons, unquote. Now, to provide some context here, she's saying that this is the fault of two Brown supporters. She says one pretended to be Ed's attorney, and another filed what she calls bogus 1099s on Elaine's behalf. She says these activities triggered the punishment. But whatever these petty offenses, does any of this justify putting anyone in a really horrible and dangerous prison, especially if they haven't harmed anyone? MacNab makes a couple other interesting points that should make liberty lovers take cheer. First, she says New Hampshire is the land of, quote, lots of Free Stater flakes, unquote. I guess that means there are more of us here than we realized, or that those of us here are having a disproportionate impact. One thing that is not clear in her article is that probably only about a third of Free Staters supported the Browns. Others kept their distance because of Ed's wacky belief system or a sense that his cause was unsustainable. So imagine what would happen if the entire Free Stater group were to support something. Of course, that has happened a few times, and it results in a lot of people doing a lot of things. Unlike the feds, always peaceful. She says another Brown supporter, Reno Gonzalez, was given, well, may have been given an additional sentence because of the interview he requested that I air with him. She said the interview was scheduled to be played in court and used against him. She also says Brown supporter Jason Gerhard was given a stiffer sentence simply because the judge didn't like what he had to say at his sentencing. According to the Concord Monitor, Jason Gerhard quoted the New Hampshire Constitution. I wonder if the judge didn't like that. MacNab says she thinks Danny Riley, another nonviolent Brown supporter, will get 40 years in jail. She says authorities have been using what I would call Soviet tactics against him. They've brought psychiatric accusations into the mix and thrown him into a mental hospital. MacNab says, quote, Riley assaulted the court with dozens of gibberish filings and earned himself 30 days in a mental institution, prison, getting a psychiatric evaluation, unquote. Talk about being the arsonist and the fireman. Prisons do things to people to make them crazy and then put them in the loony bin. On a more colorful and hopeful note, MacNab says a Brown supporter defied warning signs and took up residence at the seized Brown home. I guess that would have been in summer of 2008. This after Washington authorities used force to seize the house last year. By the way, a reminder, it's now been roughly 2 years since Washington agents began using violence in the Brown case. That was when they tackled Ed Brown and invaded Elaine's dental office back in 2006. Since then, Washington has reused violence on at least six separate occasions against Brown supporters and the Browns. That includes opening fire on a fleeing Brown supporter in 2007 on camera. During the entire crisis, whatever their faults, neither Ed nor any of his supporters intentionally used violence in furtherance of this cause. There's one possible exception. There was an allegation that a Brown supporter in Texas assaulted an undercover federal agent, but I cannot find any news or internet reports about that. So just this 2-page blog article by MacNab seems to verify a lot of Brown claims and delivers a backhanded compliment or two that liberty lovers in New Hampshire should take heart in. She's writing a whole book about the Brown situation, so that should be even more helpful in this regard. Hopefully it will cement New Hampshire's reputation as the successor to Montana in terms of being a place full of cranky freedom lovers and free state flakes. This is Dave Ridley signing out for RidleyReport.com this October 11th, 2008. Oh, also, I will try in the video description for this clip to provide the latest information for writing the jailed Browns and their supporters that were jailed. Total of 6, what you might call political prisoners. Not a one of which are charged with harming anyone.
This edition of the Ridley Report is brought to you by
KeenFreedomFest.com.